Hello everybody, Shalom. Okay, we're going to be learning now about Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. And this is our second sugya on Pesach. The first one we learned last week had to do with the different types of chametz, of taroves, and chametz gamar. Now we're going to get into the Seder. And this will be our introduction of what we're going to be doing next week, where we're going to be working on the Haggadah itself. Okay, what we're going to be learning now is what we call Mitzvah Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. If you look at your sugya sheets, it's right there. It says Mitzvah Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. We're going to be looking at a number of sources that are going to explain to us the mitzvah of this of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. Now, what does that mean? Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. That means retelling the story of the Exodus. This is something that we're familiar with. We've done this almost every year of our lives. We should have, at least. Maybe we were in a baby, we weren't at the Seder table. But every year of our lives, we sit down at a Seder. So if we're in Israel, we sit down for one. If we're outside of Israel, we sit down for two Sedarim. And we go through the story. And that actually is one of the 613 mitzvahs, for us to sit down at the Seder and tell the story. That's what we're going to be investigating. So what I'm going to do in this video is go through, I'm not sure how many sources we'll get through on this video, but we're going to go through a number of sources on Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. We're going to look at a couple of the sayings of the Rambam. We're going to look at some psukim in the Torah, and we're going to try to understand this mitzvah as a whole. Obviously, like in every other shir that we have, we're going to list a couple of questions when we're done. And what I challenge you to do is to really analyze the questions, the sources, combine the two, and try to develop a svara, try to develop an idea, an explanation as to what the mitzvah Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim is all about. The questions that we're going to ask are going to lead us to an understanding of what the mitzvah Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim is. Now we're going to look at first is the Rambam in Hilchos Chametz Matzah, Perek Zayin, Halacha Aleph. This is source number 1. The Rambam says as follows, and I would take notes if I were you, because when I get back, the bonus bonanzas, many other questions are going to be contingent upon you understanding what these sources say. Mitzvahs Aseh Shel Torah, L'saper benisim v'niflos shenasu lavosenu b'Mitzrayim belel chamishasar b'Nisan. There's a positive command to the Torah, meaning that there is a command for us to do something. And what is it that we're supposed to do? To tell of the miracles and the wonders that were done to our forefathers in Egypt on the night of the 15th of Nisan. The Exodus, the death of the firstborn, and the ensuing Paro throwing us out, that all occurred on the night of the 15th of Nisan. And just as it occurred back then on the 15th of Nisan, so too on the 15th of Nisan, we go ahead and we commemorate that by telling the story. Shenamar, now the Rambam quotes a pasuk. Generally in our shiurim, we don't focus, actually the last thing we focused a lot on psukim. So here too we're going to focus on psukim. The Rambam says, Shenamar, Zachor es hayom hazer, asher yetzasa miMitzrayim. Right? So the Rambam says that where do we see that there's a command? If I open up the Sefer Torah, you'd say, show me where there's a command. So the Rambam says, it says, remember this day that you left Mitzrayim. Now, that's a command. We got that. Now look what the Rambam does. He says, Kimo Shnei, and that's similar to what we saw where it says, Zachor es Yom HaShabbos. It's similar to in the Ten Commandments when God says, remember the Shabbos day. Okay? So that's what the Rambam says. He compares with the Zachor, the Zechira, the remembering of Yetzias Mitzrayim, with the Zechira of Shabbos. Uminayin, the Rambam asks, Uminayin shebelel chamishasar. Right? So how do I know that I'm supposed to do this on the 15th, where it doesn't say that in the pasuk? All the pasuk says is Zachar Seyel Mazeh. Remember this day that you left Mitzrayim. How do I know that I'm supposed to remember this day on the exact same day? So where does he get that from? So the Rambam quotes. He says Shebelel chamishasar, says Talmud Lomar v'yigadet lebincha bayom hahu leimor ba'avor zeh b'shah sheyesh matzah omar munachim afanecha. The Rambam quotes the pasuk and the limud, what the Gemara learns from the pasuk, and says, it says, "V'gadat lebincha," you should tell this story to your sons by Yom Hahu, on this day, meaning at the same time that you have matzah and maror in front of you, which is commanded on the 15th. That's the time when you should tell over this story. Vaf apisha ein lo ben. Now the Rambam says, hold on a second. The pasuk that tells us to do this says, "V'gadat lebincha." So now, let's say you don't have a son. Okay? Some people don't. I didn't have a son for 10 years. right? Some people, well, actually for 30 years, but 10 years after marriage, I didn't have a son. So even though you don't have a son, what's the idea? Even great wise people, even great sages. So yeah, you imagine, right, the story in the Haggadah that we read every year, Rabbi Akiva and his friends sitting around in Bnei Brak with Rabbi Tarfon, and they're sitting around in Bnei Brak, and there's a knock on the door. We remember this, that they say, come, right? So these were 5 Chacham sitting around. Their families weren't there at the Seder. It was just five Chacham, 5 of our greatest sages. They clearly knew the story, but even Chacham Gedolim, Chayavim L'saper B'Yitzias Mitzrayim, they too have to tell this story. You imagine a great Chacham. So he's getting ready for Pesach, right? He's got all the chametz out of his house. He's got his matzah out and everything, and he sits there and says, "What? I could be learning some things that are so much greater than just merely the story of the Exodus. Let me continue my Gemara learning. Why should I have to tell the story that I've told my whole life? I know the story like the back of my hand. Why? So that doesn't matter. He's still got to tell the story. The Rambam says a line that we're familiar with from the Haggadah itself. Now I could tell the story. I could tell a story about Yitzias Mitzrayim in 5 seconds. They were Jews. They were slaves. Paro said they wanted to leave. Moshe said, "Let them out." Paro said no. Hashem sent plagues. Paro finally gave in. The Jews were free. Done. That's the end of the story. It took us a whole 11 seconds based on the counter, right? So why does Seder take so long? So the answer is because however long and however many details you go into what happened, that person is more praiseworthy. That's the end of the first halacha. The Rambam then continues, and the Rambam says, this is source number 2, Parak Zayin halacha beis, mitzvah lo hodia lebanim va'afilu lo sha'alu shenemar regalat lebincha. There's a mitzvah to teach your children what happened at Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim. Where do we see that? Right, and even if they don't ask. Most kids don't come to the Seder and say, "Hey, Dad, what's going on here?" Right? Most kids are prepped in school about it, like we're doing to you right now. Right? So that's the idea. But the father still has, right, and the mother still has an obligation to tell their children about what happened. Right? And even if they didn't ask. Now, where do we get that from? Shneimar v'gadat lebincha, like we saw in the previous halacha, that the pasuk says that you should tell your children. Lefi daitel shel ben aviv malamdo. Now, right, based on the intelligence of the kid, that's how the father teaches him. Ketzad, how so? Im hayakaton o tipesh omer lo b'ni. Kulanu hayu avadim kamo shivcha zu o kamo eved zeh b'mitzrayim. U'b'layla zeh pado sanu kadosh baruch hu v'yitzanu l'cheres. Let's say your son is your daughter's little, or they're I kid you not, the Ram says tipesh. Not so smart. They're stupid. Right? So what do? You don't have to go into great detail and explain what slavery is. But you show them, I know it's going to sound a little harsh, you show them the housekeeper, you show them the waiter at the hotel. You say, listen, that's what we used to be. We weren't paid and we didn't treat them that nicely, but we used to, but we used to be those people. We used to be slaves. And they get it. And then what happened? HaKadosh Baruch Hu freed us from Mitzrayim on this night, many, many years ago. But v'im haya haben gadol v'chacham. But let's say your child is a wise person, is a great person themselves. Let's say they really understand, they really get it, right? So then what do? Modio ma she'iru lanu b'Mitzrayim v'nisim shenasa lanu ayidei Moshe Rabbeinu hakol fi da'atel shel. So then you go into greater detail. You go into some amazing examples of what Bnei Yisrael had saw and what happened to them. You go into great detail. But it's all, in others, at the end of the day, you have a mitzvah to tell your children what you saw, or what happened to us, right? But it's all according to the amount of knowledge that the child has, what they can handle. Little children, you tell much less to. Older child or a more intelligent child, you go into great detail. That's the idea. Okay, what I'd like you to do is send me a quick text message. Quick text message. Or a quick email that tells me a couple of what you felt. I'd like you to list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'd like you to tell me 5 things that you understood from this halacha, what you think are the important things of this halacha. Okay? That's what I'd like you to send me right now. Like literally, right now. See you in the next video.